Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. How y'all doing, everyone? I hope that you're doing well and you're ready for the program. So today on the show we have computer and technology news. We have a ton of different stuff to cover. Everything from Facebook, Amazon, Tesla, cybersecurity, Riot Games, a little bit of League of Legends in there for you, just for some fun. And then of course we have Theranos update, John Deere update. My God, we have all that and more. It's been a busy day, and hey, to keep it all in line, keep it all in our head, and to make sense of it, that's what we're here for. So everyone, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, everything you need to know about the program, including podcast directory. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then this is the second best place to catch us, which is anywhere where podcasts are heard. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the program. Let's see, links to social media, articles, reviews, show notes, all at our website. Yeah, just computeramerica.com. That's all you really need to remember. So with that being said, everyone, I hope that you're having a great day and you're ready for the show. Let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. So I think that for our first one, this article really caught my attention because of its length. It's how in-depth the Intercept actually kind of dug into this. And hey, it's always fun to, this one's not really picking on Facebook. It's more highlighting how things work behind the scenes because they are such a big force in today's world. Even if you don't partake in Facebook, even if you don't think that Facebook should be something that people focus on, turns out, it really doesn't matter because there are 2 billion active users, and that's going to cause a lot of a lot of interactions, either between businesses, between people, and it's something that you should really take note of because even if you don't, partake in it, then, other people do, and this affects our world around us. And so this just came out today from a leak, and makes it all the more revealing that Facebook's secret blacklist of dangerous individuals and organizations. So it makes you wonder what exactly counts as a dangerous individual and organization, and why would it need to be kind of behind the scenes blacklisted. So they said that to ward off accusations that it helps terrorists spread propaganda, Facebook has for many years barred users from speaking freely about people and groups it says promote violence, saying that the restrictions trace back to 2012, so this has been going on for the better part of a decade, when it was facing growing alarm in Congress and the United Nations about online terrorist recruiting, which, as you recall, this was back when, I think it was like the Taliban were getting more and more, were recruiting more people, and then, of course, really over the next 3, 4, 5 years, we had a string of either in Europe or America or other parts of the world, really, where homegrown terrorism was kind of the word of the day. People being radicalized in their home thanks to the internet, and this is where they were lawmakers and policymakers across the world were looking at social media, saying that social media is helping connect people to these radical ideologies. So this is where it has its origins. And now they're saying that Facebook added to its community standards a ban on organizations with a record of terrorist or violent criminal activity. Sounds pretty fair. This modest rule has since ballooned into what is known as the Dangerous Individuals and Organization Policy, a sweeping set of restrictions on what Facebook's nearly 3 billion users, and of course I was talking 2 billion active daily, 3 billion irregular users, of course, but yeah, still 3 billion users can say about an enormous and ever-growing roster of entities deemed beyond the pale. So obviously you want to have the ability for people to speak freely and, go on about their lives. But yeah, let's find out what gets you on this list. Oh, and by the way, fun fact, let's see. I blinked and the global population went from 7.3 billion to, I believe, 7.9 billion. Just, this is a complete aside, because I saw the 3 billion users and it's like, wow, that's a lot of people. Well, according to, the population clock, and obviously there's no perfect way to measure the complete global population. Obviously, people are dying, people are being born all the time, and of course, having a perfect count is not something really possible. But by most estimations, we are just a couple hundred thousand off from hitting the 7.9 billion mark. And I think, according to this, we should hit 8 billion probably sometime in the next year. So, hey, happy birthday to all new 100 million of you. So, yeah, a complete aside, but yeah, I thought that was fun. Lots and lots of people. So, with that being said, in recent years, they said that the policy has been used at a more rapid clip, including against the President of the United States, and taken on almost totemic power at the social network, trotted out to reassure the public whenever there's any kind of notion of violence, from genocide in Myanmar to the riots at Capitol Hill, are linked to Facebook. So essentially, Facebook uses this ability to kind of block organizations and people and say, no, look, we're combating it, we're good, and there's all these people on it. They said that most recently, following the series of Wall Street Journal articles about how the company knew it facilitated a myriad of offline harms, a Facebook vice president cited the policy as evidence that the company is diligent, and of course, that was an internal memo obtained by the New York Times. But as with other attempts to limit personal freedoms in the name of counterterrorism, Facebook's DIO policy, which is again the dangerous organizations. So with that being said, the policy has become an unacceptable system that disproportionately punishes certain communities. It is built atop a blacklist of over 4,000 people and groups, including politicians, writers, charities, hospitals, hundreds of music acts, and long dead historical figures, which makes perfect sense. Especially the long dead historical figures. Regardless of what you think, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of Nazi paraphernalia and whatever is completely and utterly banned in Germany, because they never want to really revisit that part of their shameful past. And to say that, oh, even though they're long dead, people can talk about them all they want, whatever. No, you don't really want people pushing really radical ideologies, even if their figureheads are deceased. So it makes perfect sense that they would include that. That does not strike me as strange at all. Now, a range of legal scholars and civil libertarians, great, have called on the company to publish the list so that the users know when they are in danger of having a post deleted or their account suspended for praising someone on it. So here's my problem with just publishing it, saying here are the lists of blacklisted words, here are the list of blacklisted phrases and people and organizations. It's a lot like anti-cheat software. in video games, where you run into this issue of when you're completely transparent, saying this is what will get you banned, this is what will get you, a warning or whatever. Whenever you have it completely listed out, A, B, C, that gives people a line to tiptoe. And when you tell people how they're going to get caught and how they're going to get their post deleted and stuff like that, when you make it completely transparent, people are going to tiptoe the line, get around the line, circumvent the policy. They're going to take the words as literal because that's how they are unfortunately supposed to enforce it. You don't have these weird phrases like, supporting terroristic acts and violence and things like that. You can't be broad and general when you list it out perfectly like these legal scholars and civil libertarians want. That gives people a way to circumvent these policies. And while I'm sure that the policies, nothing Facebook really does has been very good when it comes to censorship, because in a lot of ways it's been about bottom line. That's what we've seen from Facebook. What protects profits, what protects user growth, what protects them as a company, as opposed to what protects the users as individuals. But I can understand why they kind of leave it a big anomalous hole. Now, the company has repeatedly refused to do so, claiming it would endanger employees and permit banned entities to circumvent the policy, which, again, everything I just said. Facebook did not provide The Intercept with information about any specific threat to its staff, as if saying that, as long as there's no imminent threat, then they should just publish it. But I definitely don't agree with that. So despite Facebook's claims that disclosing the list would endanger its employees, the company handpicked oversight board has formally recommended publishing all of it on multiple occasions as recently as August because the information is in the public interest. I agree with sharing it with lawmakers, policymakers, maybe even third-party regulators, to see if they're, kind of being held to a certain standard. Completely black box is probably not the way to go, which we've seen with so many algorithms. But yeah, telling people exactly and explicitly what it is also not the way to go either. There has to be some intelligence to the policing that Facebook does. Now, The Intercept has reviewed a snapshot of the full list, and here's the thing: it was a leak. This is how we got the list in the first place. This is what the article is, mentioning here, is that they were able to review a snapshot of the full DIO list and is today publishing a reproduction of the material in its entirety with only minor redactions and edits to improve clarity. And by the way, we'll include a link to this as well in the show notes. This is the entire list. If you're watching the video portion here, obviously, you would not be able to read this because I'm scrolling too fast. But yeah, this is the entirety of the 100-page list that has all of the banned individuals, music acts, politicians, everyone. So the list, they mentioned that Facebook puts users in a near impossible position by telling them that they can't post about dangerous groups and individuals, but then refusing to identify who it considers dangerous, which it seems a little vague. Clearly, if your post mentions an individual and then your post gets deleted, I think you know exactly who is, kind of in danger, or who is getting your post deleted. I think you can narrow that down. But still, the list and associated rules appear to be a clear embodiment of the American anxieties, political concerns, and foreign policy values since 9/11, experts say. Even though the DIO policy is meant to protect all Facebook users and applies to those who reside outside of the United States, which, being a U.S. company, that's to be expected, that they would have U.S. policy. That's one of the big problems with multinational corporations, is that they don't really take into consideration, the local, a lot of local, not tendencies, but subtleties. So still, the list, they mentioned that nearly everyone and everything on the list is considered a foe or threat by America or its allies. Half of it consists of alleged foreign terrorists, free discussion of which is subject to Facebook's harshest censorship. There you go. They mentioned that the DIO policies and blacklist also place far looser prohibitions on the commentary about predominantly white anti-government militias than on groups and individuals listed as terrorists. There you go. They mentioned that, they list lots of groups that are and individuals that are suspected of being terrorists and predominantly Middle Eastern, South Asian, and Muslim, or those who are said to be part of violent criminal organizations. Let's see. So essentially, they're focusing more harshly on people of Middle Eastern, South Asian, Muslim descent, and other criminal enterprises who are predominantly Black or Latino. And they are essentially not as stringent on white militia groups here in the United States. That seems to be kind of the majority of this. And of course, again, you can see all this here, just scrolling through randomly, you can see things like the Islamic State, obviously, anything Al-Qaeda, lots of names, starting with Muhammad, obviously. There are going to be, hundreds of names in that. All of these will get you banned. And, they have the category, so they have the name, the category, the region that they're from, the type, and so it has things like media and I'm sure media and political or things like that, affiliated with, and they mentioned the affiliation. And you can see they have different categories such as terror group, hate group, crime group. So this is the list, and this is the first time we've ever had this list available to us in the public, including South Philly Militia. There you go. So I guess they do have a number of militia groups here as well. So, pretty comprehensive. Definitely a large DIO list from Facebook. Now, though the experts who reviewed the material say Facebook's policy is unduly obscured from and punitive towards users, it is nonetheless a reflection of a genuine dilemma facing the company. After the Myanmar genocide, the company recognized it had become perhaps the most powerful system ever assembled for the global algorithmic distribution of violent incitement. To do nothing in the face of this reality would be viewed as grossly negligent by vast portions of the public. And for those who don't remember the whole Myanmar issue, was that Facebook was used to spread a lot of propaganda against, I believe it was against the Muslim community in Myanmar, and they had rallies, they had organized efforts to actually pinpoint and kill people by using Facebook's tools to organize and identify people of those minority populations. Facebook was definitely used to aid in the genocide of the Muslim population in Myanmar. So clearly Facebook is reacting to that, as they should, that their tool is being used by government agencies and, law groups to completely wipe off the face of the earth a portion of the population. That's a very, 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 very bad thing. So Facebook has, they've made it secret, but still they have to do more to prove that they are not tone deaf and not blind to how their platform is being used around the world. So they mentioned that harsher restrictions for marginalized and vulnerable populations, as we mentioned. They described a collection of groups and leaders who have threatened or engaged in bloodshed. The snapshot reviewed by The Intercept mentioned that they had hate crime, terrorism, militarized social movements, and violent non-state actors. These are the different groups that you can get categorized into. These categories were organized into a system of 3 tiers, and with each tier corresponding to speech restrictions or varying severity. But while labels like terrorist and criminal are conceptually broad, they look more like narrow racial and religious proxies once you see how they are applied to people and groups on the list, raising the likelihood that Facebook is placing discriminatory limitations on speech. So there you go. Yeah, and they even have a nice little chart here. You can see on the video portion, Facebook's dangerous organizations and individual by category. The vast majority on this is terrorism. And then the next biggest part is militarized social movements, hate groups, criminal, and violent non-state actors are, of course, 1% of the entire list. So you can see that there. Let's see. So skipping through because the article is actually very, very well researched and very long. Let's get a couple more quotes here, and then I think we'll probably move on from this topic a little bit. But they mentioned that the list seems to create two separate systems with the heaviest penalties applied to heavily Muslim regions and communities. The differences in demographics composed between tiers 1 and tier 3 suggest that Facebook, like the US government, considers Muslims to be the most dangerous. And by contrast, he pointed out that hate groups designed as anti-Muslim hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center are overwhelmingly absent on the Facebook's list. So this is just further highlighting that a lot of these groups, such as the Southern Poverty Law Center, such as the ACLU, such as, a lot of different critics of the United States' take on hate, violence, and terrorism. It seems like these are reflected heavily in Facebook's own work, which makes complete sense. Again, being an American company, they need to make sure that they don't run afoul of the law. So, of course, any group that the United States government sees as an enemy or a threat, Facebook is obviously going to add them to the list. And yeah, so if there's a problem with these lists, and if it's reflective in the U.S. government, then yeah, I really don't see Facebook by any means taking on the U.S. government and trying to promote downgrading some of these groups on behalf of them to the U.S. government. That's just not it. So they mentioned that, they have another quote here saying that anti-government militias among those receiving more measured interventions from Facebook present the most lethal domestic violent extremist threat to the U.S. To the U.S. That's what they've said multiple times. The militarized social movement entries do seem to be created in response to more powerful organizations and ethnic groups breaking the rules pretty regularly. And Facebook, feeling that there needs to be a response, but they didn't want the response to be as broad as it was for the terrorism portion, so they created a subcategory to limit the impact on discourse from politically powerful groups. There you go. So again, this very clearly gets into politics, which we're going to kind of skip over that a little bit. But again, this is the first time we have seen behind the scenes of how Facebook categorizes, catches, and kind of discriminates between different people from different organizations, different parts of the world. And yeah, it's as much of a mess as you'd think. It really is. So the entire article, give it a read. It's probably going to take a couple minutes, but yeah, definitely read this, check it out, and we'll post links over at Computer America. It is a big article, and again, they even link to the list that they're kind of talking about there as well. So if you want to see that, definitely check that out. Okay, so that was story number 1. Heavy stuff. Let's see if we can find something a little bit later. Riot Games. I heard a little bit about this, and I'm looking forward to, I am looking forward to this. Riot Games makes League of Legends. They make a couple other things like Wild Rift and what have you and TFT, but mainly they're known for League of Legends. And League of Legends has a reputation among video game communities that, how do I put this? They're very toxic. They're very salty. they're full of a lot of mean people. And I don't know if it's the hormones. I don't know what it is about the game. It's very competitive, and people treat it as such. Well, one of the ways that this was kind of shown was something called all chat that you could for a long time disable in the settings, but a lot of people had it turned on. And even though they're your opponents, you could communicate with your enemies in all chat. And by and large, even through my own experience, but it seems like Riot Games is officially recognizing this as well, is that, well, it wasn't really used for much other than provocating, taunting, and yelling obscenities to your opponents. So they took the completely rational measure, which is nuke it from orbit. They have deleted all chat from, or at least disabled all chat from League of Legends. They said that online games are rife with toxic behavior that can ruin the experience for players that just want to have fun. In an effort to curb verbal abuse in League of Legends, Riot Games has decided to disable all chats for publicly match-made games, temporarily at least. The feature gives players a way to communicate with opposing teams and can be a source of fun banter because, of course, in an ideal world, if you're playing against someone, there's a clear display of skill, and you decide that, hey, you want to tell them, wow, you really outplayed me there. That was great. Or you did really good. Or I got you. Something fun like that. But no, usually it's talking about other people's mothers. It's just not good. So and they mentioned the game director, Andre Van Roon, and lead game producer Jeremy Lee wrote in their announcement, though, that at the moment, negative interactions outweigh the positive ones due to the rise of in-game verbal abuse this year. COVID, it has people acting all sorts of ways. So check this one out. They mentioned that teams will still see others' emotes and control 1, 2, 3, 4 spam. So if you hit control and 1, 2, 3, and 4 simultaneously, you throw up different emotes. So you can still taunt them with that a little bit. But the chat function is disabled between enemies. Riot knows that there's still verbal abuse going on within team chats and that the move won't eliminate the behavior from the game completely. The developer deems team chats too important to disable, however, since that's what people use to strategize and coordinate their actions, which, again, for a game like League of Legends, completely fair. And actually, it's kind of fun, really. They were talking about how do we reduce toxicity and how do we, make sure that these negative interactions don't go through. It wasn't long ago, like a year or two ago, and honestly, it's been asked for 10 plus years when it comes to League of Legends, 10 plus years, why this game doesn't have voice chat. People look at games like Overwatch, Call of Duty, whatever. Voice chat has been a thing, and voice over IP has been a thing for many, many years now. And in a game that is so team focused and team strategy focused, why has there not been any kind of push for voice communications between teammates? And of course, now we're talking about doing away with all chat and then potentially doing away with chat altogether, even among allies. So they said that according to Polygon, the reaction to the change has been mostly negative, with people mentioning that the fun experiences they've had in bonding with players from opposing teams. Some even claim that the most toxic behavior happens within team chats instead, which I would completely agree. A lot of the negative interactions happen from within your own team, because when you mess up, the enemy, they like that. That's a good thing for them when you mess up. But when you mess up, your own team gets very upset, and they are more likely to flame you, rage, just really go off on you. It's not often that all chat, if you beat someone enough, they're going to talk whatever, and, they're going to be mad because, you outplayed them or you did better than them. But by and large, it's not really going to affect you as much as your own team being negative towards you. So they mentioned that that Van Roon has since clarified on Twitter that the plan is to test the change for a couple of patches, starting with the latest patch, and then ask players for feedback. Riot could choose to keep or reverse the change based on the feedback it gets, though it could also keep it in some regions where the response is largely positive. And I think that that's how it's going to play out. The ability and the change is going to be on a region by region basis, because as I understand it, obviously they have EU, they have EU, US, Latin America. I think they have their own Japanese servers, but yeah, they definitely have South Korean servers, Chinese servers. Yeah, they have different regions, and every region is kind of different in its own subtle ways, due to cultural norms and stuff like that. I would not be surprised if this is gone for good in places like China. It might come back in places like Europe and North America, but places like Brazil and Latin America and China, I don't see it. And definitely maybe even South Korea. That's definitely not going to happen. So, yep, there you go. It's we'll see what happens, but by and large, I don't think much of value was really lost here. I don't think a lot was gained, and the ability to talk to your enemies is probably not all that important, but at the same time, hey, video games are social. You're playing with 9 other people. It should be fun, and you should have the ability to talk to anyone that you are actively playing the game with. But I understand at the same time, when I wanted to play League of Legends, when I wanted to climb, when I wanted to rank up, honestly, disabling chat, the chat completely was honestly the way to go. People are, just log into the game, /mute all, and just play the game to the best of your abilities was the best way. Chatting served little function when it came to getting better, but when it came to having fun, some of my best interactions have been talking to other people. So there you go. Okay, and again, that's just my own personal feelings towards it. But yeah, Riot Games disables all chat. Very interesting. Let's talk about, I think that our next story is going to be a right to repair update. So for those who don't know, some of the biggest proponents, or I should say opponents to the right to repair have been famously John Deere. And you may think, wow, what? A farming machine company, or a company that makes farming equipment. Why the heck would they be in the right to repair over phones, laptops, computers, cars, whatever? Well, turns out John Deere, they make a lot of money when it comes to their ability to fix tractor equipment, because you buy them for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then the ability to repair them. They don't want people messing with the system. Essentially, you can buy the combine, but the software that runs the combine, that is absolutely 100% mandatory for running the combine, is maintained and ever updated by John Deere. So because of that, they don't want to sign away the piece of equipment completely, even though they are paying for them and the farmers eventually own the equipment. John Deere keeps a stake in that equipment for all time. So they've been a big opponent against the right to repair, for the right for farmers to essentially, hack their equipment and be able to fix it themselves. Nope. So looks like John Deere is back at it again by informing state legislators and lobbyists on why they don't need right to repair laws, because it's a conversation that's coming up more and more. And honestly, I think that Microsoft over the past couple of weeks has been making some great progress in making sure that their equipment is ready for right to repair movement. So Montana lawmakers and farm industry lobbyists descended on Whitefish, Montana last week to discuss, among other things, the right to repair. Billed as an open debate between pro and anti-right to repair advocates, the live panel discussion was more a one-sided discussion of the evils of letting people fix their own stuff. Now, obviously, Computer America, we're going to be a little bit biased here, where we believe that everyone should have the right to fix the stuff that they own. If you buy it and you own it, then you should be able to do anything that you want to it. That is, it seems pretty logical to us. But then at the same time, companies don't want to do that. Be it Apple, be it John Deere, whatever it is. They don't want you to do that. So the right to repair discussion was a small segment of the 112th Montana Equipment Dealers Association. 112th. Wow, good for them. A gathering of farming equipment manufacturers, dealers, and other agricultural industry types to discuss the topics of the day and relax on the lake in a resort town. It should be noted that the Equipment Dealers Association is a lobbying group and that represents John Deere, Case New Holland, and other industry manufacturers and dealers. So there you go. Local Montana radio personality Aaron Flint hosted the event and broadcast it live in his Montana Talks radio show. Flint kicked off the discussion by reminding people that their right to repair legislation had recently been defeated in the Montana legislature, saying you had folks saying, quote, "I just want the ability to repair my own equipment, just like I've always done, but the end quote, but the nature of the equipment has changed over the years." So essentially saying, here's their main argument, but it doesn't matter. Montana attempted to pass 3 different versions of the right to repair bill in the past few years, and none have passed. They mentioned that a farmer had proposed draft legislation to help make it easier for people to fix their own equipment after his constituents sounded the alarm, and he later let the legislation die. One can assume thanks to lobbying. He mentioned that, quote, "I dropped that bill and that brought out a lot of folks that were concerned about that, and rightfully so," he said on a panel. And the association actually came to me and said, "Hey, we're working on this issue and we're trying to get these diagnostic tools that you're asking us for to the consumer." And so through that and through the discussions I've had through the Manufacturers Association, I went ahead and did not move that bill forward. Essentially saying, the private companies came to me, assured me that my issues were going to be addressed, and so I let private organization stop public legislation. Seems a little wrong, but still. They mentioned that. They mentioned that the Deere in particular has promised it would make repairing his tractors easier by providing some access to parts and repair guides, and has used that as the ammunition to get the right to repair bills killed. And as of February of this year, it had not actually begun offering any new repair resources. And I'm sure that COVID has probably thrown their timelines off, but still, promising and delivering 2 different things. So John Deere has repeatedly promised to make it easier for farmers to fix tractors and other equipment they propose from the company. Despite the protests to the contrary, it's still difficult and expensive to do repairs that were simple a generation ago. It's such a persistent problem, and there's a booming market in the 40-year-old pre-electronic tractors. And here's the problem. If something is complicated to fix, and it costs a lot of money, and it's very difficult to get a repair, that's not a sign of the times. That is the sign of a bad product. I know that it can do more, and I know that it's more automated than ever, and it's more capable than ever of doing things that previous generations of tractors and combines couldn't. But if they can't do the job that they're designed to, and they can't be fixed easily, and or at least in somewhat the same way as previous previous equipment, that is a design flaw, and that's something that should be addressed either afterwards in future updates that they can then fix and kind of work around this, or in future updates in future tractors. They need to make it simpler and easier to fix, because if it's not designed to be fixed, why would any farm want it? Because they need to make sure these things are going to last a long, long time. So that seems like a problem more than just, oh, that's just the nature of the beast. Like, you built the beast. You are building these tractors, and you're not building them to the standards to which your industry needs them to be replaceable or not replaceable, but repairable. So they mentioned that the right to repair is having a big year, and it mentions all the different things when it comes to Washington, the FTC, the Biden administration, all this to make things easier to fix. In Montana, the politicians and lobbyists gathered an attempt to stem the legislative tide, saying it's clear that this event was more about opponents of right to repair making their case than an honest discussion of the policy. But I'm glad that the representatives of the Montana Farm Bureau and Montana Grain Growers, two very powerful organizations, I'm sure, were there to stress the ways that repair restrictions prevent farmers from getting their job done. And he mentioned this, we aren't golfing with manufacturer lobbyists at mountain resorts. We're talking to farmers to learn the truth. Lawmakers should do the same. That's what they're saying. So, yep, John Deere has always been against this, and I get it. They want to keep their industry secrets intact, and they want to make sure their secret sauce stays secret and all that good stuff. But yeah, these things need to be repairable, and they're just not really, they just don't really seem to be in a business of doing that. So, okay, yep, there's that first story. How about we go ahead and talk about Theranos, because I did mention it in the opening. And for those who don't know, Theranos, if the name kind of rings a bell, they were the company back in 2012 or something like that that promised to do gene sequencing and revolutionize medicine as we know it, because then everyone could get their patient's DNA sequenced for more accurate and specific treatment options, care, what have you. The ability to spend just a little bit of money comparatively and get your patient's DNA sequenced so they know that, due to these markers that you have, other people with these markers responded more positively to chemo, to radiation, to, these kinds of drugs. It was going to really bring medicine into the 21st century. But she was also kind of a con man. She was selling snake oil. Nothing she promised actually did anything. And that's what we're finding out more and more. So they mentioned that Safeway's ex-CEO said his company did more than 100 hours of due diligence for a deal with Theranos that would ultimately cost the grocery chain over $360 million before the agreement was axed. Yet, even after that research, when Safeway trialed Theranos' diagnostic devices at its corporate headquarters for almost a year, then CEO Stephen Bird said it became clear that the startup was a mess, losing patients' tests and returning weird results. Saying, quote, I think whenever you start something new, you're going to have some rough spots, but we continue to have rough spots, he said. We had samples that were lost. We had results that didn't make any sense. And that seems to be, kind of the nature of it all, where Theranos was, kind of running these tests in equipment that were not verified. They were not, giving reliable results. And in a lot of cases, they were actually just sending out fake reports, which is very, very dangerous, especially if you try to build a treatment plan for people. Yeah, that can have the opposite effect of helping them. It could be hurting them. So they mentioned that Bird's revelations emerged during the cross-examination with Elizabeth Holmes, defense attorney. Holmes is on trial for 10 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And yeah, so let's see. We're going to dig here just to make sure we get this. The court also heard more from Bird about the test that Holmes performed when pitching the Safeway's board members. Michael Shannon, a board director, had his finger pricked and his blood assessed for prostate-specific antigen, a screening test for prostate cancer. The Theranos device, quote, made a bunch of noise, Bird said, but never delivered a result. Holmes added and said something, he added, said something that made us think we would get it later, and they didn't. So essentially, they had a device at the Safeway headquarters. They pricked his finger, got some blood, and this, whatever this device was, made a bunch of noise. So I'm assuming it's maybe a centrifuge or it's some kind of reactor. It didn't do anything, but hey, it was noisy. That's pretty cool. So in his cross-examination, they pressed Bird on the finer points of the Safeway Theranos deal, trying to make the case that the experienced executive knew what he was getting into. He had been CEO of the grocery chain for almost 2 decades when he met the 26-year-old Holmes. And he knew that at the time she was a very young entrepreneur, and it's fair to say that in the process of doing a deal, Safeway did hundreds of hours of due diligence, and Bird said at least 100. So yeah, the article goes a bit more into their proposed deal. Holmes had promised Safeway executives that her company's diagnostic devices could return results to patients in 20 to 30 minutes. Yet, when Safeway was testing the machines, it was taking 3 to 5 days for Theranos to send the results back to patients. It sounds like they were trying to, at least in Safeways, get these machines into their grocery stores. That way people could come in, get tested, and then, maybe shop around the store and, be able to have that kind of thing available for their customers, but it just didn't really work out. Safeway did have several ways to back out the deal if they didn't like the way the pilot program was proceeding, or if the FDA was going to bring regulatory action against the startup, they could cancel within 30 days' notice. Ultimately, Theranos never made it that far. By the time the deal finally dissolved, Safeway had spent over $300 million preparing its stores. It's pretty crazy. And again, this all happened back in 2010 and 2011, where they were hoping after 2011 to have these things rolled out in their stores. Safeway had hoped to expand the testing to over 900 stores in 22 states. Really took them for a ride, and really did some bad things to a lot of good companies. So, okay, there's that one. And actually, I should have brought this one up when it came to the League of Legends the all chat, and this has to do with Activision. Well, Activision and the fact that cheating in Call of Duty is horrible. And it's gotten to the point, because these games are free, to make a new account costs you nothing except a little bit of time, a fake email, whatever. It costs you nothing to make a new account. And for people who want to cheat, for people who want to boost, whatever your reason is for cheating, it's a very simple equation. It costs you almost nothing to cheat, and you get potentially paid. You get the ability to beat everyone else who's playing this game. Really, it's almost a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you cheat? Well, it looks like Activision is going to attempt to fix this with something that the industry has been really pushing, at least the gaming industry has been pushing, but privacy advocates have been against. And the way I'm kind of seeing this now, and from what I've heard about the game and the state of the game, is like, you can either have the game be open to cheaters, and it's going to ruin the experience for the majority of players out there who, maybe once every couple of games, or maybe even every single game, run into a hacker, and it just makes the whole experience awful. Or you implement this, scare off a certain portion of people who are who are more mindful of their privacy, but the game is allowed to exist. Those are your options. Either make the game unplayable or make the game playable but very invasive. So this is by Jess Condit over at Engadget, and they're saying that Activision has unveiled its big new approach to squashing hackers in Call of Duty Warzone and Vanguard. saying it's a two-pronged system called Ricochet Anti-Cheating. The first stage is a series of server-side enhancements that will better identify and remove cheaters from the game, which you would hope that would be all it would take, is just see, oh, someone is literally flying, someone is literally invincible. You would hope that that would be enough, but no, looks like they need to improve it a little bit further. And they mentioned that, and that will hit servers later this year, saying that these new server tools will be live on Vanguard when it comes out on November 5th. The second prong is a PC kernel-level driver designed to monitor the deepest level of every player's rig while they're in-game in an effort to stop outside software from sneaking in through this back door. So the kernel, or ring 0, is the most privileged level of any PC, granting access to every layer of hardware and generally reserved for things like graphics card drivers and trusted bits of the operating system. The Ricochet anti-cheat kernel level driver will only turn on when the Warzone or Vanguard is active. It's not an always on situation, which you would hope, if you don't have the game running, then the game wouldn't be monitoring your system. So the point here, the kernel is that, like a kernel of truth. It is the most basic part of an operating system, and it's going to have the ability to, communicate your drivers. It's to make sure that there's no error or blockage or anything to do with your mouse driver, your hardware driver, your graphics card drivers, your monitor drivers, whatever it may be. Everything is supposed, if it's kernel level, it's supposed to be there. Whenever you get a virus, it's going to try to get that level of permission, because if it can get that level of permission, it's going to have access to everything your hard drives read and write. It's going to have access to everything your monitors display. It's going to have access to everything the programs running on your computer are doing. Kernel level is everything. So to put this anti-cheat, on the same level as that, you're not going to be able to run a third-party program that is known to them. Essentially, they're going to know that, here's our game, which would be Warzone or Vanguard, Call of Duty, and if they have those permissions, they're going to know everything that is running on that computer, and they're going to know if one application is affecting their games. So if you have a cheat client that's going to extract information displayed on the screen, whatever, even though it's not running in the same client as the video game, if it is affecting that video game, that kernel level anti-cheat system will be able to identify and say that, hey, that program is affecting that program and it shouldn't be doing that. That's a cheat. We're going to shut this down, and it will shut down the application entirely. Now, they said that the Ricochet anti-cheat kernel level driver will only turn on when when these games are active, obviously. So while operating in the kernel isn't uncommon for anti-cheat software, this is likely the most concerning part of Activision's new plan for many players. Riot Games faced scrutiny in 2020 for implementing a similar kernel-level driver in Valorant, though the main issue was that it was always on, operating even when the game was not active. There you go. Now, they said that this isn't a new worry either. Back in 2013, the always-on Ring 0 anti-cheat system employed by ESEA was commandeered to turn unsuspecting players' PCs into a Bitcoin mining farm. There you go. With these lessons in mind, Activision has stressed that Ricochet will only be active when the associated game is live, saying specifically the driver shuts down when you exit the game and turns on when you start a new game. Now, of course, they said that the kernel-level driver will hit Warzone alongside the Pacific update later this year and Vanguard when it comes out later. Cheating has been a significant problem in Call of Duty Warzone for a long while now. Activision has banned, get this, more than 500,000 accounts since the game's launch, though it's not uncommon for matches to be riddled with aimbots and cheap hacks to this day. It's a problem, and I understand completely why they're doing this. Is this patch the best way to do it? Probably. Unfortunately, it's, even though it's an invasion of privacy, and of course that means that Activision is going to see every other program that you're running, and they're going to be able to see every process that your operating system is performing. It is going to stop cheaters. So that's at least something, I suppose. They mentioned that players have been screaming for a robust anti-cheat system in Warzone and other Call of Duty titles, and Ricochet is Activision's kernel-level, not always on answer. I mean, it does address some of it, but yeah, it's not a perfect solution. Now, speaking of potential security flaws, how about we talk about an actual security flaw? You can see here, and I love talking about OpenSea. It's, something very Schadenfreude about talking about NFTs, that I don't like them, and whenever I see news that is just negative to NFTs, it's that little bit of vindication that just tickles the back of my brain. But hey, regardless of my feelings, these things actually happen. This one came out today over at Engadget. Security flaws at NFT marketplace OpenSea left users' crypto wallets open to attack. So even though they were promptly fixed, another situation where, these things just didn't work the way they were supposed to. So after finding itself embroiled in the controversy over insider trading, NFT marketplace OpenSea is getting some more bad press. The site had a critical security vulnerability that could have allowed hackers to steal users' entire crypto wallets, according to the security research firm Checkpoint Software. So the first notice reports of stolen crypto wallets triggered by airdropped NFTs, prompting the firm to investigate OpenSea. That revealed critical security discoveries that, if exploited, could have led hackers to hijack user accounts and steal entire crypto wallets of users by sending malicious NFTs. Malicious NFTs. I guess an NFT that was also an executable, if that's even a thing. Very interesting. Now, they said that the attack relied on user inattention and the fact that OpenSea already generates a lot of pop-ups. If the victim received and viewed a malicious NFT sent by a hacker, it triggered a pop-up from OpenSea's storage domain requesting a connection to the cryptocurrency wallet. Clicking on the pop-up gave the hacker access to the wallet and allowed them to generate another pop-up. If the user also clicked on that without noticing a note describing the transaction, the attacker could theoretically steal all of their money. So it sounds like they had pop-ups for these transactions. Click here. Are you sure? Click on a button that says, I want to purchase this NFT. And, behind the scenes, it would say that, okay, connect your wallet. A pop-up will come up, connect your wallet, confirm the transaction, you're good to go. And then the hacker could then somehow embed a secondary pop-up that would come up just like the first one and say, confirm the transaction again. And that transaction would in fact be the entirety of their cryptocurrency wallet. Because it was already connected, they just had to click one more button and everything would go missing. So again, preying on people's just not paying attention. So it seemed that a lot of things needed to go wrong for the attack to work, and it's not clear if it was actively exploited. Checkpoint said it disclosed the vulnerability as soon as it found it, and OpenSea said it implemented a fix within an hour of it being brought to their attention. So the company said it's doubling down on community education around security, and the security research firm said that given the rapid pace of innovation, there is an inherent challenge in securely integrating software applications and crypto markets. There you go. Yeah, so there will probably be more awful things to happen to the NFT market, but just safe to say that stuff like hacking, stealing, any way that you could get cryptocurrency from one person to another unsuspectingly is just going to be very, very common in that field. So the last article that we have, the very last, and we have some we didn't get to, and I apologize for that, but the last one that we have is one that we haven't talked about yet on the show, but for anyone out there who has been a fan of William Shatner, and of course in his Star Trek career, of course, well, he's been to space, but only in Hollywood until today. They had it's official, and with plenty of hype and a slight delay, William Shatner became the oldest person to fly to space. The 90-year-old Star Trek icon was one of 4 crew members aboard the Blue Origin's NS-18 mission as it flew to an altitude of 66 miles, saying that he edged out the 82-year-old aviation pioneer Wally Funk and set the previous age record a few months earlier. So there you go. Everything went well. Blue Origin flew him to space. He's good to go. Everyone, congratulations to William Shatner. Everyone, thank you for tuning into the program. Have a great day. Thank you so much. Catch you next time. Computer America.